October 14th, 2025. On that day, support for Windows 10 officially ends. Around 400 million computers are still running it, roughly 40% of all Windows devices worldwide. And overnight, those machines move from supported to unsupported. No more security updates. No more patches. No guarantees. For many people, this feels absurd. Their computers aren't broken. They aren't slow. They still do everything they need. Yet when they try to upgrade to Windows 11, many see the same message. This PC can't run Windows 11. Not because the processor is too weak, not because there isn't enough RAM, but because of a small security component called TPM 2.0. And that's where the frustration begins. But to understand why this happened, we need to rewind. August 9th, 1985. Redmond, Washington. A young Bill Gates introduces Windows 1.0. Yup, it's clunky. It crashes. It's not even close to perfect. But it's a starting point. Over the next 2 decades, Windows becomes the operating system. Not necessarily because it's the best designed, not because it's the most secure, but because it's everywhere. Schools use it. Offices use it. Homes use it. By the late 1990s, Microsoft controls over 90% of the desktop market. When you control that much of the market, you don't just compete, you set the standard. That dominance led to famous antitrust battles, especially around Internet Explorer. Microsoft bundled its browser into Windows, making it nearly impossible for competitors like Netscape to survive. The US government sued. The case dragged on for years. Microsoft settled, but the pattern was clear. First, dominate. Then, define the rules. For decades, Microsoft made money in a simple way. You bought Windows once. You bought Office once. That was the transaction. Then the world changed. Smartphones exploded. Apple reshaped consumer tech. Google built an ecosystem around search, ads, and cloud services. The center of gravity shifted away from desktop PCs. By 2014, Microsoft wasn't collapsing, but it wasn't leading the future either. That's when Satya Nadella became CEO, and he made a decision that reshaped the company. Microsoft would become cloud first. Instead of selling software once, Microsoft would sell services continuously. Office became Microsoft 365, a subscription. Files moved into OneDrive. Azure became a global cloud platform powering corporations, governments, and startups. The results were dramatic. Microsoft's stock price climbed. Revenue soared. Where Azure became one of the most important cloud platforms in the world. Investors rewarded the shift. The company crossed multi-trillion-dollar valuations. From a shareholder perspective, the strategy worked brilliantly. But when incentives shift at a company of that scale, products change too. Windows 10 launched in 2015 and was initially well received. It fixed many of the frustrations of Windows 8. It felt stable. But over time, subtle changes appeared. Microsoft accounts became more central. OneDrive integration became more aggressive. Advertisements for Microsoft services appeared inside the operating system itself. To Microsoft, this made strategic sense. Windows wasn't just a product anymore. It was a gateway into an ecosystem of services. From a business standpoint, keeping users connected to Microsoft's cloud increased lifetime value. It strengthened data synchronization. It improved cross-device continuity. From a user standpoint, it sometimes felt like the operating system was pushing back. Then came Windows 11. The most controversial change wasn't visual, it was architectural. Windows 11 requires TPM 2.0 and Secure Boot. TPM, or Trusted Platform Module, is a hardware-based security component. It helps enable disk encryption, protects credentials, and strengthens defenses against certain types of malware and ransomware attacks. From a security perspective, this requirement aligns with modern enterprise standards. Governments and large corporations increasingly demand hardware-backed security. But here's the tension. Millions of perfectly functional machines, some only a few years old, do not meet the requirement. Not because they're incapable of running Windows 11 in practice, but because they don't meet the official hardware baseline. For those users, the message feels blunt. Upgrade your hardware or stay unsupported. Now add another layer. At the same time, Microsoft is heavily investing in artificial intelligence. It invested billions into OpenAI. It integrated AI features directly into Windows through Copilot. It introduced ambitious concepts like Recall, which captures snapshots of activity to help users search their digital history. On paper, these features are designed for productivity. Search your past work instantly. Get contextual help. Let AI assist in complex tasks. But AI features require compute power. They require consistent security frameworks. They require modern hardware. So Windows 11 isn't just a design refresh. It's a foundation for an AI-first operating system. And that's where perception splits. From Microsoft's perspective, the world is moving toward AI-assisted computing. Security threats are escalating. Enterprise customers demand strict standards. Cloud services are central to the future. From a frustrated home user's perspective, my computer worked yesterday. Now it's labeled obsolete. The operating system feels heavier, more connected, less under my control. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Home users are no longer Microsoft's primary revenue engine. The majority of Microsoft's revenue growth comes from cloud services, enterprise licensing, and recurring subscriptions. Corporate IT departments care about standardized hardware. They care about compliance. They care about enforced updates to prevent breaches. What works for enterprise environments increasingly defines the consumer experience. This isn't necessarily malicious. It's incentive alignment. When most of your revenue comes from enterprise contracts, how do you optimize for enterprise needs? That can create friction for individual users who value flexibility over uniformity. Now consider the environmental angle. When operating systems drop support for large hardware populations, some devices will inevitably be discarded. Not all of them. Many will run Linux. Many will remain on Windows 10 temporarily. But some will become e-waste sooner than they otherwise would have. That trade-off, stronger security standards versus hardware longevity, is part of the modern tech dilemma. Then there's privacy. Windows collects telemetry data. Microsoft says this improves performance, reliability, and security. Critics argue that operating systems should minimize data collection by default. The introduction of AI features intensified that debate. When Recall was first announced, security researchers quickly identified risks around how sensitive data could be stored and accessed. The Microsoft delayed the rollout and revised the feature to make it opt-in with stronger protections. That episode revealed something important. Users are increasingly sensitive to how much visibility their operating system has into their digital lives. And trust, once shaken, is hard to rebuild. So here we are. Microsoft is one of the most valuable companies in the world. Its financial strategy is working. Cloud revenue is growing. Enterprise adoption of Windows 11 is accelerating. By traditional business metrics, the company is succeeding. Yet there's a growing emotional gap between Microsoft and a segment of its user base. Some users feel that Windows is no longer designed primarily for them. They feel it's designed for IT administrators, cloud integration, and AI roadmaps. The irony is striking. The more powerful Windows becomes, the less personal it can feel. This raises a bigger question. When a company reaches Microsoft's scale, who is it really optimizing for? Shareholders? Enterprise clients? Governments? Individual consumers? The answer isn't simple. It's all of them, but not equally. The modern technology landscape rewards recurring revenue, ecosystem lock-in, and service integration. That model favors centralization. and centralization inevitably reduces certain kinds of user autonomy. So is Windows getting worse? That depends on your definition. If you measure by security standards, enterprise readiness, and AI capability, Windows is evolving aggressively forward. If you measure by simplicity, hardware longevity, and minimal intrusion, the experience can feel heavier than it once did. This isn't incompetence, it's strategy. And strategy always reflects incentives. Microsoft isn't alone in this. Apple tightly controls hardware and software integration. Google pushes cloud-first ecosystems. Every major platform is consolidating around services, data, and AI. The difference is that Windows once felt like a neutral tool, a canvas you controlled. Today, it feels more like a managed environment. Whether that trade-off is acceptable depends on what you value. The real question isn't whether Microsoft will reverse course. Financial incentives suggest they won't. The real question is whether enough users will demand alternatives strongly enough to shift those incentives. Because markets respond to behavior, not complaints. For now, Windows still dominates the desktop world. Decades of compatibility, enterprise integration, and user familiarity create massive inertia. But inertia is not the same as loyalty. October 14th, 2025 isn't just a date on a lifecycle chart. It's a symbolic moment, a reminder that in modern technology, ownership is complicated, control is negotiated, and progress always comes with trade-offs. Your computer may still work perfectly. The question is whether the system running it still feels like it belongs to you.